I'd like to call the meeting of the Economic Development Commission of Woodbridge to order at 7:35 p.m. I do not believe that there's any public here to comment, but if there is, Betsy, let me know. Okay. Do we have a quorum? I believe we do, right?
I think so.
2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of
5 out of 8. So yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I wasn't at the last meeting, but I don't believe that you all approved the March meeting because there was the March minutes because there was not a quorum. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if everyone has reviewed them, can I get a motion to approve the March minutes?
I think I only reviewed the April minutes.
What's that? You're reviewing April now?
No, I think I forgot to review the March minutes.
Okay. Debbie made one motion. Donovan, second. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay. All in favor? Anybody else?
I'm gonna abstain because
Okay.
I can't find them.
All right, so the minutes are approved with one abstention from Cleo. And then can I get a motion to approve the April minutes?
So moved.
I wasn't at that meeting. Cleo made a motion to approve the minutes. Can I get a second?
I mean, there was no quorum either. So
So no.
I don't know. Do minutes still have to be approved when there's no quorum?
I think so.
Yeah, but we just didn't make any motion. We couldn't act on any motions, but yeah,
Right.
we still took
Right.
minutes. Yeah.
So Cleo made a motion to approve them. Do I have a second? Anybody? A second? Sean, Donovan, any second on the? Thank you, Debbie. All right. Any discussion about the minutes other than whether we had a quorum or not? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The minutes were approved unanimously. So next up on our agenda is a presentation from Rex Development on SEDS. And I'd like to introduce Barbara Malmberg and Ginny Kozlowski from Rex Development, and they're going to go through a presentation and let us know what's going on at Rex Development. So I turn it over to you all.
Sorry, before we do that, I think we may have Brooks with us, and I'm having a glitchy day. I can see that we have one attendee here. Pretty sure it's Brooks. I cannot get to the attendees to unmute or promote that person, so I apologize. Brooks, if it's you, could you try leaving and coming back? Can't really figure out.
Any chat to you or anything?
Oh wait, there, I see it. Yes. Brooks, I've just unmuted you. Can you? Shoot, where'd he go?
Brooks, are you there?
You hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Great. All right. Now I will pass the baton. Do you want me to pass it to Barbara?
Yeah. Yeah, she's now in the right position. So yeah, let's see if we can present. So as Barbara's getting the baton, I'm Ginny Kozlowski. I'm the Executive Director of Rex Development. And Barbara Malmberg is our project manager on the 2021 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Annual Update. And she'll give you a little bit more background. But again, we thank you for your time. And Barb, kick it off.
Sure. For those of you, and I know I've met many of you before, this year is a little different. As you know, we do the 5-year major SEDS plan, and the last time we did that was 2018. And then we do an annual update. Well, last year we finished collecting our data for our annual update at the end of February. So basically our SEDS was a big old giant lie because everything had changed by the time it was submitted. And right now, data that we've used all along to compare is also lagging behind. So what EDA has asked us to do is to talk to all of the towns in our region, you know, from Milford to Meriden to Madison, to really think about what we would have done differently if we had known the pandemic was coming. So just as a quick background, we do the SEDS for the 15 towns. We were the first federally designated economic development district in Connecticut. And what that does is allows us to access funds for projects that we otherwise wouldn't be eligible for. So as we're going through some of the material, think about really like what would we do different if this were to happen again, or if we had known in advance it was coming. In terms of how we're doing as a state, I think the area where we're really leading is in vaccinations. As of Monday, 71% of the adult population had received their first dose at a minimum. And that number is obviously higher by today. And plus now that 12-year-old or older, you're going to be able to get the vaccine. The economic development impact of this is really tied to consumer confidence. Not really sure how the CDC message today about not requiring masks indoors is going to play out in terms of consumer confidence, but I feel like at the very least, we are very strong relative to our neighbors in terms of vaccinations. Not surprisingly, our hardest hit area has been arts, entertainment, and recreation, or hospitality and leisure, depending on how you think about it. And Connecticut, once again, was very fortunate in that when the pandemic started, there was obviously a huge economic impact, but so many businesses were labeled essential that not everyone shut down. So the fact that we began opening that following June has allowed many of our sectors to recover more quickly than other states have seen. Again, hospitality and leisure is way behind. I think, you know, that includes restaurants, that includes hotels, that includes the arts, that includes entertainment venues. So we're not expecting to see a full recovery in that sector until 2024. I think a lot has been done to help the restaurants at the Shuttered Venues Grant, and we just need to make sure that those businesses continue to take advantage of those opportunities. This slide is a little bit worrisome because this is pre-pandemic data. And we're comparing between 2010 and 2019, and the 5 towns highlighted in blue have seen an increase in poverty by at least 25% of where they were in 2010. We don't know if this is a trend that's going to continue or would have continued this way without the pandemic. But it's something that I think bears watching. Meriden is the only town that actually had a reduction in poverty over this time period. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. But again, there's data here, but it's going to, you know, basically blow up once we get our 2020 data. So it's just something to consider from a regional perspective. I mentioned some of the grants and loans that were available through the states and the feds. The PPP, Connecticut did very well in. At this point, round 2 has closed, but as of April 13th, that's the last update I have from SBA, Connecticut had gotten 9.6 billion. And when we look at the region for phase 1, South Central Connecticut got 1.3 billion. So I think that all of our organizations working together did a really good job getting the message out about how to get assistance and, you know, providing all the options that were available. I think one of the areas where we feel like we didn't do as good a job is dealing with smaller businesses that may not be connected with a chamber, may not be connected to Rex, may not work with SBA. And that's the group we really, for one of ours, what we would have done differently is try to figure out how we would reach those businesses sooner and give them the information that they need. But overall, you know, everybody is pretty happy with how we did in terms of the loans. This year, EDA, we actually have a new EDA representative and she's great. And we've been working with her and she is actually the one who's posing the question about what we would do differently. But she's also let us know that the shift in EDA is going to be from opportunity zones to these 7 other issues. And basically what that means is opportunity zones, while they're still there, they no longer count as points when you apply for an EDA loan. So it's still good to, you know, have economic development in an opportunity zone. It just doesn't get you any bonus points.
Yeah, it's no longer a priority. It's important, but you don't get any priority points.
So
what determined that it? What made it not a priority anymore? Is there anything specific?
Changing the presidency.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and
I think on top of the pandemic, this is the areas where they're seeing the highest level of negative impact. Opportunity zone is a very long game. I think they're looking at a more immediate response, and those are the areas to focus on that they want us to focus on.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
So keeping in mind those 7 items, this is the question that and I know this is a very different presentation than the one we normally do, but we want your town's feedback on what the region could have done in preparation. And it could be at the town level, it could be at an individual business level. What could we have done better to prepare for this type of disaster? Some of the things that we've heard include better access to broadband, better access for healthcare for all sectors of society. You know, pretty broad, but definitely worth considering.
I think some of the towns, and again, if we had known this was going to happen, they would have already upgraded their technology within City Hall. Some towns have really struggled getting their meetings online because their computer systems couldn't even take the software, or they didn't have microphones or cameras.
I think some of what I heard from small businesses was goes back to the PPP loan. So if they didn't have that connection with the banker, they were sort of out of luck. So one small business owner I know, you know, sang praises for People's Bank in Woodbridge, but others who didn't have that affiliation with People's Bank just kept hitting walls. Other small business people that I knew from Woodbridge, either living in Woodbridge or with their business in Woodbridge. So I don't know what you would do to prepare, but I can say that was one of the business owner problems that I saw.
And you are not the only one who saw that issue. What we also found was happening that when these really small businesses were going to apply, they didn't have their paperwork in order. They weren't used to dealing with these kinds of systems. So when they would go and they would be asked for, you know, a profit and loss sheet, they may not even have that because they just didn't function in that way. And in order to move through the process, they needed that information. So we think financial literacy for both businesses and individuals is really important. And that's not something that we recognize that was a problem to the magnitude it actually is.
And I think we saw that in the new businesses numbers that were released from Secretary of State. Some businesses didn't have the right corporate structure to be eligible for some of the funding. So the region had over 4,500 new businesses. And I think, to Barbara's point, PPP round 1 was a learning curve for everyone. So when we got to PPP round 2, more businesses were ready. And if you go back to Barbara's chart, you can see that only 48,000 loans or grants were given in the first round and 64,000 were given in the second round. And to your point, Cleo, I think one of the things is that we have to, as economic development people, is sort of get people prepared for a checklist. Like when you start a company, you follow your articles of incorporation with the state of Connecticut and your bylaws. Well, that was required as part of your filing. But once you do that one time, you probably put it in a filing cabinet because it was in paper, and people aren't using paper anymore. So I think we have to teach people how to create an online filing system where they keep all their corporate documents and it's backed up. And then we did hear of another case where people would have been eligible for some rescue money from the state of Connecticut, but they hadn't updated their records with the Secretary of State. So these are kind of things that we as economic development people have to figure out a way to reach more people with a message about keeping your paperwork in order and keeping your filings up to date. And that's a significant challenge.
And even just knowing someone to call. I don't know.
Right.
Was there phone numbers where small businesses could call? I don't know.
211. We referred if we couldn't help them, we would refer them to 211.
Right.
And SBA was providing director assistance, Catherine Marks, Frank Alvarez. I mean, it felt to me, because I was in the circle, that I was seeing these people every single day doing webinars. And what I realized was it was the same people. We weren't reaching people that we didn't already know. And I think a lot of those folks really could have used the help. And I'm at this point, I'm still not exactly sure how we can reach them, because we can't even get an accurate business list. And we've been working on it for a while. You know, the Secretary of State's list is woefully out of date. So we're getting, new information, but we have all kinds of other information that's just not valid. So
it's going to definitely be difficult for you to gather every single new business, but just as we do in town, I mean, is there some sort of a plan to roll out some sort of an educational program where we as EDC of Woodbridge would call the businesses in Woodbridge together for, a breakfast meeting where we'd roll out some sort of a financial or some sort of a pandemic readiness literacy course or something like that. But you could do it locally in each different, region or each different economic development town.
Those are the ideas, Jeremy, exactly that we're looking for. And how are we best able to scale that up and to keep people coming back every year for kind of like an update, because rules change and it is a large undertaking. But if you look at the numbers on this chart about how much money has been pumped into the Connecticut economy, if this money wasn't pumped into the economy, just think how bad it would be at this moment across the country, but in particular for the state of Connecticut. So we need to recognize that a lot of the reason why we are seeing as high levels of consumer confidence in Connecticut is because there's a lot of money that's been pumped in from both the feds and the state. And there's more coming, which is going to also help, but you're going to get a once in a lifetime chunk of money that if we deploy it appropriately, we can solve some of our systemic so that we're not looking at a, $2 billion deficit in 3 years and having to talk about raising taxes. So I think this is part of the challenge. In some ways, it's terrifying to know how much money is coming in and how do you really deploy it to get the best possible outcomes.
And I think, with the focus that's now on what would you do to prepare and resilience, I started thinking about resilience in a different way. And I'm just going to pop down here. And all I had to do was look at the news. We've had contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, and in Florida. Texas power grid completely failed. We saw supply chain disruptions that are still going on.
Gasoline.
The network hacking that brought down the fuel line, and all of our, sort of known issues with climate change. When you can see those kinds of infrastructure problems just by like 6 months of news, that really does sort of highlight some of the areas where we need to, put some real funding in with real planning. This is very alarming, and we need to make sure that some of that money that comes into the state, and hopefully there's an infrastructure plan, that we get these issues so that we're secure, because the pandemic was very disruptive, and not as disruptive as it could have been because many of us worked from home. Things went on. It was, difficult, inconvenient. We lost people we cared about, but that's nowhere near the level of difficulty of not having, drinkable water. And unfortunately, that's the point that I think we're at in terms of considering what we need to include in our SEDS. Not that we can, resolve it as the central Connecticut region, but to keep pushing it up the ladder through the state level and the federal level, so that we're not sitting down at the bottom of that chain when something bad happens.
And the entire state is being asked these questions. So
I'm not the only,
again, we're all collecting the same
value.
data, which is a big step forward as well, so that we are coordinated and we're all coming at it with the same set of facts, or as close as possible, because it would affect, clearly this impacted the whole world. And if we were to have contaminated water, it would impact the entire state.
I skipped a couple slides. And I think you guys are more informed than most people about this, about the prices for homes within the region and the availability of homes throughout the spectrum on the cost scale. And there is a cut group that is working on the affordable housing issue as a region. Basically, what they're trying to do is develop a regional plan that would propose a gamut of housing opportunities, whether it's a granny unit, or instead of having a complex, you have, a couple of multifamily homes. They're putting all of these sort of ideas together, and then every town has the opportunity to do a section that's specific to them. We know it's not a one size fits all kind of solution, but there's a concerted effort among the 15 towns organized by COG to try and address the housing issue. I think we saw the people experiencing homelessness. We had, they were at great risk for infection. And now that we've seen the, increase in prices with greater demand, we are not going to be able to have families, have starter homes. So this is something that we're trying to address as a region. And I think Betsy, you've been at some of these meetings, right? So it's, the good piece is I don't feel like anybody is saying this is what everybody has to do. But I also think that it's a good idea to bring everybody to the table so that there can be an honest conversation. Okay, I already did the happy resilience. So the plan that we're going to create for the region is going to basically follow the outline, and this is an early outline that the state has put together for their recovery plan. And, you know, the categories are very broad, but we will be picking and prioritizing the areas where our region has the most damage or the most opportunities, all of those kinds of things. And basically, our goals and objectives haven't changed. It's just where we are on the path to meeting those goals and objectives and what different types of action items we need to take to start moving forward. And the goal for us as a region is not to return to what we were pre-pandemic. It's to really envision what we could be, what we want to be, and the things that we always said, okay, this is what we would do if we had the money. And what we need to do is put those all together and sell it, basically, you know, as part of the deal that the state's going to throw out there. They always talk about Greater New Haven being the economic engine of Connecticut, particularly with bioscience. They're going to need to help us. If they want the state to move forward, we have to be part of their plan. We've certainly seen, you know, huge growth in bioscience here, and we just have to take advantage of it because it is a very unique attribute that people can't say, oh yeah, we have Yale New Haven Hospital, Yale School of Medicine, and you know, we're all good. You know, we are in a very unique position there, and hopefully we can utilize that to help, you know, the whole region and, you know, close in on some of the wealth gap. Okay, so we're open to questions and comments. Stop sharing. So I can see everybody.
Just have a comment. I thought it doesn't address. I think when you began, you saw one of the issues is how can we be more prepared should this come again and whatnot. This did not really address that, but it's an issue we've heard about a lot, which is the problem of one of the problems of recovering from the pandemic after we've started to get a lot of people vaccinated is how to get back to work, and how does that really realistic to get back to work with the absence of childcare. And I was thinking, and it's not just, you can't just start doing childcare right now in the sense that it'll be the same as pre-pandemic childcare, because the majority of the children currently are unvaccinated, and you would have a problem of, if you had offering childcare, how do you offer childcare when a significant number of children are unvaccinated and could, you know, create a major problem putting lots of little children together, many of whom may not even be used to wearing masks because they're so young. But having said that, I think that there's things the state could do to incentivize and make childcare perhaps a little more profitable, perhaps by changing the I don't know, the minimum wage law, or maybe helping in some ways of funding and setting up childcare facilities, and helping them to because I'm sure there'd be a lot of demand. It's just that they would need probably help getting started, and then there would be the issue of how do you begin this with a large number of children unvaccinated. But there might be ways around this, or certainly once the children do get vaccinated, then it's off to the races, and you could start doing this, and people could be freed up to look for work.
And that, I think that is part of, in the broad outline that I showed of the state, that's part of their healthy community section, because they do recognize that that's a huge problem. It was particularly difficult when people didn't know which days their kids were going to be in school and when they weren't, and just the general fear of, either their children being infected or bringing that infection home or to their grandparents. So that is definitely a priority for the state. Because you're absolutely right. It is a huge problem, and it is affecting participation in the workforce, and in all fairness, it's affecting women more.
And maybe it's possible that the state could, in some form or fashion, have an ownership stake in childcare facilities, and that would become a permanent thing going forward, year in and year out, because that's the kind of thing that every family needs to be able to know that their children are in good hands and safe, and that they can now look for work without having to worry about making their own provisions.
I think you're absolutely right. There are many unknowns, and this one that you just outlined about childcare is right up at the top. I don't think anyone at this moment is expecting us to have all the answers, because we're still not as much in a response mode. Every day we are learning more about this virus in the near term, and then folks in the longer term. So I think this is really the first year that we have already started to gather some data, and there's definitely gaps. So as time goes on, we should be able to gather better data. And I think one of the things that we had heard from another community is how work patterns are changing. So as we're working on bringing childcare back online and making it more available, we need to also adjust childcare to new work schedules, because we're not going back, not everyone's going back to 9 to 5 in the office or every day in the office. And to your point, how do you run a business if your clientele all used to be Monday to Friday, 8 to 6, but now you have people who are only putting their child into daycare 3 days a week. So how do you maintain profitability? And I think these are the things that we want the feedback on, because somebody's going to ask us to come up with answers or guidance or input, and we want to make sure we're getting that information from the public and from daycare providers and people like yourselves. So obviously you made very good points, and I don't have an answer.
My concern is access to technology. I know Woodbridge is better off than some area towns, but the fact that we can only get reliable service from one provider, I think would pose a problem for a lot of people. Certain parts of town are just not as strong with Optimum as other parts, whether it's, I don't know what the reason is, but there's some people that just had trouble keeping their kids online when they needed to, and doing their business at the same time.
Yeah, to that point, I was wondering if there was anything that, with all the money that came into the state from the feds, is there anything that are you earmarking any money for this kind of infrastructure build up for some of the towns that are more rural, so they can build up their 5G or their Wi-Fi connections, things like that, where we as the town could say, all right, we're not near a lot of cell towers, we need to build this up, can we apply for loans that'll be sort of a pandemic readiness sort of thing for something that may happen in the future? Is that being discussed?
It is being discussed. Before all of this happened, Governor Lamont was at the New Haven Public Library talking about how Greater New Haven should be the first 5G community in Connecticut. And since then, actually having seen all of the limitations of the existing infrastructure, that is one of the priorities for the administration, to use their ARP money to build out high-speed broadband throughout the state. And it's partly for the things that we've talked about, you know, about being able to work from home as an individual or do remote learning. But lots of the growth sectors that we have, bioscience, manufacturing, remote healthcare, I mean, what we're doing in telehealth now, they all require huge capacity, and we don't have it. And while it was several years ago, the story hasn't changed that much. When Mount Sinai, who's now Semaphore, came to Brantford and needed to send genome data, they had to purchase their own line. They could not get that commercially in our region. And that's where we want to excel. So I think that may be the piece that's actually driving the investment in broadband. But we'll all benefit.
Right. And if the next infrastructure bill is passed, there'll be even more money for broadband. And I think Commissioner Lehman, who has been very accessible during this whole pandemic, has indicated that this is an area, a growth opportunity. They just passed a data center bill for Connecticut, which would hopefully attract a data center. And we all know how much they need. So clearly it's a targeted area for the state of Connecticut. And I think we're never going to have this opportunity with the amount of money that's coming in if we don't invest in something that is a game changer. Shame on us. So broadband, I think, is something that we've heard from almost every single community. And it's, you know, not urban and not rural, everyone.
Brooks, was that
Are
you?
you saying there's going to be municipal broadband owned by public by municipalities?
So Governor Lamont is a big public-private partnership kind of guy. So there'll be, I would guess, I don't know this, but I just based on some discussions, that he would look for a public-private partnership. One, to bring the price down, and two, to make access more equitable.
And in November of 2019, the lawsuit was settled so that towns could have access to the telephone poles, because that was one of the things that was preventing adding service in some areas. So that it's sort of like getting rid of the runway restriction at Tweed. It's just another step forward to get to what we need.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I just have a comment. So in Woodbridge, I'm having the same problem that you guys have been having, you know, statewide and regionally, trying to get information about local businesses. And I don't have any suggestions, but, you know, almost twice a year pre-pandemic, the first selectman would send out a letter to all of our businesses in town on behalf of the EDC and remind them to please sign up for the town's e-newsletter. And we would get, you know, 5 new people signing up, but you know, there would be major gaps in information. So during the pandemic, I was trying to tell everybody, you know, sign up for the PPP. Here's this opportunity. Here's that opportunity. And tons of people were not receiving the information because I don't know who they are or how to find them.
It's exactly what we went through, all our towns went through. It's definitely not unique to Woodbridge. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Ginny will, because Ginny likes numbers, about how many new businesses there were in the region. It was a lot.
Right, and I think you've gotten the latest list that we had gotten from the Secretary of State, and I'll resend it again. I think one of the things that the Secretary of State has started to do in 2020 was when a business renews with the Secretary of State, they're now required to put in a Nexus code. So we work with the Connecticut Data Collaborative to capture that data, and we will share it with everyone just so that you can get a sense of the folks that are in your town. Tim Ryan, who is the economic development person in Woodbridge, is
No,
unique.
Wallingford.
Wallingford,
Don't
sorry.
give away Betsy's job.
Sorry, in Wallingford, because they have a public utility, when somebody signs up for a new electric service in Wallingford, they pass the name along to the Economic Development Department. When we've reached out to UI to get new service contacts, they're prohibited from sharing those contacts. So if someone could think of another place where people would sign up as they come into town, obviously you have brokers, which could be a source. I think Jeremy might know a few of those. But it's really word of mouth. And when we did this last list from Secretary of State, Tim called to say, oh, I only had 40 names on my list, but you just sent me whatever the number was, 100 something. And I'm like, not everybody signs a lease who has to sign for electricity. You're only capturing those folks because they needed to get electricity. If somebody has utilities built into the lease, they don't know, they wouldn't know that they were there unless they happen to see them moving in or had some other source. So I think it's and this morning we were on a call with Department of Revenue Service Commissioner Bowen, and he indicated that there's so many people that have moved into Connecticut during the pandemic that he's not sure that the state of Connecticut is capturing all the taxes because there is no central registration for people, whether it's a business or a person moving into the state of Connecticut. So as much as we think about we're Big Brother and we have all this technology and we know a lot of things, there's still a lot that we don't capture. There's not a way to capture. One of my favorite questions is how many people come to visit the region as tourists? I'm like, I have no gate. I don't sell tickets. I don't know how many people are staying in a hotel that are out of town, but it's this kind of data that if we could find some better information, it would help us in making decisions going forward. And there's nothing worse than sitting on the phone with our EDA representative when she asks these types of questions and we have to tell her we don't know. So we are all about trying to find the best data we can. So Betsy, we feel your pain.
Does anyone have any other? Yeah, go ahead.
I know you mentioned earlier that a lot of small business owners don't keep good records. Are there services in place that would offer, to get someone get their books up to speed so they could get, because I think that could be a roadblock to get for some people to apply, because if I say, hey, give me a P&L from last year, you say, oh, well, I don't have it. How? And then I think one of the questions were, show me how your business have declined year over year, right? And you can't prove that. So it's just kind of like,
SCORE is a volunteer organization that will help businesses get their paperwork in order. And if you're assigned a volunteer that you don't click with, you can ask for a different person. Or if you have a specific topic that you need help with, you can get assigned the person that best matches your needs. So it wouldn't be good to send out somebody who's been in manufacturing to help a restaurant. So they try to match by industry sector, and making people aware that this is available. We worked with the New Haven Chamber. They had a number of webinars that would connect you with somebody in an accounting office or a law office, and they're still offering those programs. And at this point, because it's so important, many of these people are at least giving a free consultation before if they have to enter into something more long range.
a lot of people probably don't know about the service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, again, we're counting on all of you to be ambassadors. You're learning every month you have a meeting, you're learning more about what resources are out there. Just share it because you do hear stories.
And let us know, because we'll do what we can to fill in the blanks, because sometimes there's another town who's been through what you're going through. And if they have a solution, we'll share it.
Right. And a number of the colleges and universities did reach out to provide volunteers to help people with their paperwork. So they were obviously qualified to help people get their paperwork in order. And a lot of that is great experiences as kids are graduating from college to say that they assisted a business and then they become a reference for them getting into a permanent position.
So just, I guess to finish this up, what do you think that we could do? What do you have any advice for us as an Economic Development Commission that how we can help get information from our town or ways that we can reach out to our business owners or landlords or, you know, property owners to help them gain this knowledge? And
So I think hopefully this means we're going back to meetings. And I think we've talked to Betsy about having breakfast meetings, and we'd be happy to come out and do a presentation or help get somebody that people or a particular topic would want to hear. We're right now, we're going to be running a session with a labor attorney to deal with the pandemic and labor issues. If you've this is the example, if you have an employee who will not get vaccinated, and it's obviously impacting your workplace because other people won't come back to work until they know everyone has been vaccinated, can you fire that person? So we're putting together with a labor attorney how to deal with some of these new COVID issues, because I don't know. So we're putting that on. I think it's a week from Wednesday for hoteliers, but you could do a general session with just a labor attorney and all of your businesses, how to deal with labor issues as it relates to COVID. I mean, that's really, you know, an important topic right now. And as you collect everybody's name and registration, which eVite is a wonderful tool, you start to build your database, and then you build your newsletter list. And, you know, again, on our Visit New Haven, I don't know how many people we have on the list, but we have thousands, and it's taken years, and we have a very good click-through rate. Don't ever hand me your business card. That would be my other thing.
Don't ever call her from your cell.
Yes.
Fair warning.
Save.
Add contact.
it's funny.
Cleo's laughing. Cleo knows.
Just in case people come up with something that they think of later, I put my email and Ginny's email in the chat box. So please feel free to reach out to us. This will not be submitted to EDA until the end of June. There will be a 30-day public comment period. So up until I think it's May 23rd, we have the opportunity to make changes and add ideas and possible solutions. So this isn't your only chance to participate. We'll be happy to include other information.
And once we have the draft, we will share it with Betsy to share it with you. I think we have until June 16th to make any revisions.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's when the packet goes out.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone have any other questions?
Nope.
I will thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
And if you really, any insights would be very, very much appreciated. So thank you, and have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. I guess we can move on the agenda. So that took about, we're at 8:30, so we've been in the meeting for about an hour. I guess we have choices. We can talk about goals again, which we've talked about, I think, a lot over the last couple of meetings, and maybe we want to put that to bed and try to finish that up. Chairman report's pretty simple, and Betsy probably has a couple things to talk about from the town. So I don't know, Betsy, what do you think? Should we talk about the goals for a little bit, see if we can identify a couple things, and then move on, or you want to table that for the next meeting?
It's kind of up to you guys. Last time it was quite the wide-ranging conversation. I don't know if people feel like we've talked about it enough to be concise, or if it might go another hour. I don't know.
Well, I missed the last meeting. I think, just talking this week with Betsy about some things, I'd love for us to put together a couple goals so that we can just sort of, focus our energies on some real tangible things that we can put forward. Like, if we're going to put together a business association, how are we going to do that? Are we going to, I know you talked about, Betsy, the town, I don't know what you want to call it, gift card, just a Woodbridge gift card, which is a card that would be, businesses in town would have to register to be a part of it, but it would just be a gift card. So I could go and buy Donovan a $25 gift card, and he can use it at any business that's registered in Woodbridge, but you couldn't use it out of Woodbridge. So basically we'd be starting a campaign where you can buy a gift for a friend or your loved one. That's basically giving a gift to any business in Woodbridge by just, that card can only be used there. So once you purchase it, it's going to be used for that, it's going to be used in town, which is a nice way to sort of put some dollars around the local businesses. I know I'm missing something that we spoke about, Betsy.
Well, sharing our survey results and kind of figuring out next steps with that.
So the survey is a big animal, and there's a lot of stuff in there, and I don't know how far you've all have looked into it. One of the thoughts that I had was it would be really nice if we could go through the survey and pull out a lot of things that we want to broadcast to the town. So, meaning we could put together a press release to the town that could go in the business news with the highlights of the survey, and how we're going to be using this data to, try to drum up business in town. So I guess I need everyone's thoughts on just how you want to use the tools. I mean, we have some stuff that we've come up with, and I think the businesses in town definitely need some center of focus. I think they need us to help them pull them together so they can put this business association together. I don't know. I'll open up to you guys for thoughts.
Hey guys, real quick, I apologize. I had to switch to hardwire because I was having horrible problems with the Wi-Fi, so I missed a lot of stuff. Jeremy, are you referring to the business survey? I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know the resident survey.
Oh, the residents. Okay. All right. All right. I've got a deck that I've been working on off and on for a while, just to display the data in a more usable type of fashion. So that's where I'm at with that right now.
I think that this week we were going to talk about the general comments that Betsy had circulated, the open-ended questions.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's what I need help with.
So I don't know if anybody else had a chance to read them.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton there. I mean, from as far-fetched as opening like a hot chocolate stand at after sledding at the old Woodbridge Country Club, to I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. So it's how do you parse that out?
I don't know.
So,
I mean,
read them all, there's a lot.
So actually this evening, for example, like for Q4, for anybody who specified other, I just carved out those 60 responses, and I'm going to see if there's any kind of you know, any kind of themes in there. But it's, looking at it high level, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I found that a lot of people just don't understand. Like they don't understand that Amity Shopping Center is not Woodbridge.
That's great.
So, they want a lot of places that already exist in town, or they want places to exist in the near town hall, which, you know, is a zoning issue. But consistently, a lot of people want to see Bradley. I mean, a lot. We don't know if this is a representative sample, but a lot of people who answered the survey want to see Bradley Road in an investment in infrastructure on Bradley Road with, you know, sidewalks or bike lanes and community space. That seemed to be a strong message that if we want the business district to be successful, we need to invest in community space, gathering space, where it's not just running into a store and running out, but a place where people can maybe walk to from a store or just meet from a store, because when you have the only community space in town being in the center of town where there's no businesses, then you know,
Right.
it makes it difficult to engage the people with the businesses and vice versa.
I mean, we have a ton of space. It's just not, it's not adjacent to the business area. So that's that.
So I have one comment, or actually it's a two-part comment. I think one question that we don't know is perhaps how long people have lived in town that filled out this survey. I think there would be maybe a divide in answer between people who have lived here a long time and got used to it, and people who have been here maybe 5 years or less, who moved here for the schools or the outdoor activities or the proximity to New Haven or whatever it is, and then feel disappointed that they don't have the shops and restaurants or community feel that they were anticipating. Because when you move somewhere, the first thing you do is not necessarily look for shops and restaurants. You look for your home. So it would be, I mean, we don't know this data, but I would be curious to find out if there was a divide in those responses. But at its core, other than just a few folks, people want something. They may differ on what they want, but they definitely want to see change and improvement.
Yeah, I kind of combed through and was trying to suss out some themes. And so, I mean, theme one is coffee, 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 coffee,
Yeah.
coffee, right? I saw a lot of people asking for mixed use, you know, so business on the ground floor and apartments above, which would create a customer base for those businesses. I think people want something more attractive than what we have, or more uniformly attractive.
Yes.
And the other thing that seemed to really stand out to me was people really want unique specialty destination type businesses. And I think that's the only way that something like retail would survive anyways. You know, you can't open a clothing store that would compete with the Gap. But it would, you know, any sort of retail would need to be specialized somehow. And so separately, based on a conversation that Cleo and I had a couple weeks ago over email, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, we have a lot of car businesses in town, right on and along Lucy Street. And there's clearly, for whatever reason, not only supporting Woodbridge residents, right? We have 9,000 residents. We don't need that many car businesses for the number of cars in town. So people are coming in from out of town to have their cars serviced in Woodbridge. So we have a captive audience. Like, how do we get these people to buy shoes and sandwiches and, you know, whatever else they need for their hour oil change or, you know, whatever it is they're doing when they're getting their car worked on here in town? How do we capitalize on that?
We need space
I
for
don't
them
have
to
an answer.
rent. You need storefront space for them to rent. I mean, if you think about it, really, there's not a lot of retail space, period. And as much as you think that there's vacancies, there's really not a lot of vacancy on the retail level. Like, it's not like you're going by a lot of, there's a lot of funky, big sort of places like your 8,000 square foot Wheelers, or, you know, that's a big place for the little town of Woodbridge. It's a big restaurant when you got 4 or 5,000. Saloon's a big restaurant for Woodbridge, but little 1,500 square foot storefronts, it's not a lot of. There's just not a lot of. I mean, 214 Amity Road is leased out. They're not exactly businesses you're going to do a lot of shopping at. It's a tattoo parlor and a nail salon and a Subway, but there's not a lot of retail space. So you need it to you need it to be here for people to come.
I think when we think back to that, I don't know who attended that webinar about the town of Wyndham a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month or so ago already. And when you look at the empty land on Bradley Road, and I think about how Wyndham was able to partner with a developer and make a marriage between the land and the developer, and how that benefited them. They revitalized their main street and added on to it. Or you look at Quarry Walk, which I know we've mentioned before, and they created a whole town center out of nothing. That does it behoove us to really reach out to those Bradley Road property owners and say, hey, if you're not building those condos, or if the brewery is not moving there, what can we do? Can we fast track another building that might look similar to 245 Amity Road, which everybody loves that look? And maybe it has apartments on the top, maybe it has offices on the top, but how can we create that? And how can we do it together so that it's a win-win? Because that land has been vacant for so long and plans have been, I wouldn't even call it progressing, just kind of left open to keep the permit alive, that maybe we try to sit down with those folks and see if we can do it together.
Is the 55 and over back alive, Betsy? I thought it was.
Nothing's been submitted to the town.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Debbie, I 100% agree with you. I think there's been a lot of different projects that have been put forward, and due to, you know, I think that I think there's a key piece missing when a developer comes into town and wants to shake things up, and not really, it's looking as it's perceived as this is going to shake things up and it's going to be a nightmare and the roads are going to be bogged down. And I think that us as EDC maybe could be a nice voice, or some sort of a voice where we can communicate to the town, communicate with the developer, and get a real detailed communication out as to what people are looking to do, so that the rumors fly in this town like it's like, you know, nobody's business. So if we can streamline some things and get facts together and put those facts out there for people so they know exactly what there is, and it's not he said this and she said that.
Right, it's the data from this survey could be forwarded to those landowners and say, hey, if those condos aren't a done deal, then maybe there's a way they can switch gears that would benefit the town. I mean, did you read about what's happening in Orange now, where Firelight Plaza is? That
No.
whole,
No.
the
No.
shopping center
It's been
behind,
for sale for a long time.
yeah, the shopping center behind Dip Top. They're
Mhm.
keeping the liquor store on the corner where Firelight is, but the whole strip that's pretty much empty behind it, including the yogurt shop,
Mhm.
is going to be retail and apartments.
Yeah, that was sold sometime a couple years ago. I think somebody
Yeah,
bought
but
that.
they finally presented their plans to Orange, and that whole area is going to be revitalized, including housing.
So do they have to do a rezoning of that area to make it residential?
That I don't know, but I just saw the article online. It's
See, that I'd be curious
it's
about, because
it's the
yeah, go ahead.
Sachs family that that had a proposal for the country club, and you know, they have Fieldstone and everything, so they're well-known builders.
Yep. Yeah, I'm wondering if they had to do any changes in what, their TP&Z had to do to bring the
Yeah,
change of use about. I don't know if they had to change anything or not.
I don't know. I mean, I know unofficially that that people in town love the look of 245 Amity Road. That's not part of a official survey, but it's a beautiful building, and I think people in town really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Coachman Square is a handsome building across the street, and then it kind of peters off. So I do agree with those survey respondents who said Bradley Road could be our main street. So how do we sit down with those property owners, if it's one or more, and really put it out there and ask for what we want, what represents the views of the town residents, and see if we can make something happen. I think they have to be part of this conversation.
Is that something within our purview that we want to reach out to these owners of that land and invite them to a meeting? Is that, I don't know if we'd be overstepping or under.
I don't know. I'd have to check with the town, but I think that would be something more that would be done from town hall.
But we can propose.
That's cool. We can recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, if I think we need to work with town hall and TP&Z better, where we can be a voice for certain things that are going on. I think there's a gap in the communication between the residents of the town, everything that's going on at town hall. And I think that, I don't know, we have to be the bridge so we can we have to communicate to everyone so we can get on the same page. It seems like every time something decent comes into town that could be good, they get scared away so fast that we can't really pull out the good things and try to communicate why this is going to be beneficial. It's just all the bad stuff gets thrown in everyone's face right away, and the project gets scared away.
Right.
Well, you could
No,
be the
I agree.
counterpoint. So, often in any scenario, TPZ or otherwise, the people who are motivated to speak up are the ones who don't like the proposal. And so if there is, or I should say, when there is a proposal for a business that EDC thinks will be useful to the town or development, you guys could submit testimony in favor to EDC. It's pretty rare, I think, that someone will come out and say, this would be a great addition to our grand list and it will help the town because of XYZ. Usually it's people speaking against something because they're worried about any sort of potential negative effects that it could have.
Right.
And that tends to be the voice that's heard loudest.
It's the only
Because
voice.
it's not because it's not just filling vacancies. I mean, you could fill vacancies and it doesn't affect the grand list. You know, we've seen that recently. It doesn't mean it's an exciting business, but it fills an empty storefront, which is also nice. But I think we're ready to turn the corner on something new. But how do we go about doing it the right way with town hall or TPZ?
Well, I think the really important tool that you guys have is the survey data. And I think once we've been able to kind of suss out the themes, turning it over to the public and TPZ and the property owners and the realtors to say, this is what people have said they would like to see in town. I think that is a really useful tool to somebody who's looking to, bring a business into town. I think it would give them some factor of confidence.
Yeah, we think we need to write some sort of summary report and present it with recommendations.
Can we make our next meeting to take this survey and create something out of it? I mean, put bullet points on, create a memorandum of the survey or something along those lines that can be submitted or published or.
Well, I mean, maybe next meeting we should just focus on the survey and Sean could show us, what he's been able to do, and then we could kind of work on the open-ended questions, which are kind of open-ended and
Mhm.
try to figure out what, you know, what the themes are, or the most common comments or complaints are.
Well, I mean, one thing that I missed last month's meeting, but the meeting before that, one thing that people picked up on, I think it was Debbie and Jeremy, was the gap for the restaurants of, you know, what people are doing outside of Woodbridge and inside of Woodbridge. So I mean, theoretically, that could be an, you know, that's like an opportunity. And in hindsight, I kind of wish we had done that for like, you know, like maybe like question, you know, 3 with the, you know, different kinds of other sorts of businesses. But I mean, so, so yeah, that was my thought on that. But I have a, I have a slide where I am gonna display those gaps, and that could be useful information.
Great.
Debbie, I had a question. I mean, not Debbie, Betsy. There were a couple people who made comments that they wanted to, like, one person wrote that they were interested in speaking to a board or committee member. Somebody else wrote that they were studying the feasibility of a coffee shop, and then somebody else there was, I can't remember what
Biographies.
else, but
There was
I was
biography.
wondering if those people had provided their email addresses so we could actually
No,
look up.
they did not. And there
Oh.
was another person who said they wanted more information about networking, also did not provide their email address.
Okay.
There
Pretty
was another one.
frustrating on my end.
And
Yeah,
then I
another-
think the
go ahead.
most problematic question was about the infrastructure. What did we call it? The one that had the different infrastructure rankings? I don't know. Did we call it
Yeah,
infrastructure?
I know what you mean.
Which business district infrastructure assets would you
Yeah.
most like
So
to see
people did,
developed?
a lot of the negative comments, clearly people did not understand what infrastructure was as opposed to amenities or whatever. So, and then a lot of people, a couple, more than one person didn't know what EV stood for. So just, you know, things to consider, you know, if we ever do a survey again.
Yeah. There was one response that I saw that was, it said, as a new small business owner in town, I would love to find resources for small businesses that are starting out and ways to connect network with other small business owners in town.
Right.
I think we could do that. I
Yeah,
think
and then
that's-
someone made a comment about not receiving anything about the town businesses when they moved in. I know we have the guide, the Woodbridge guide, and that can be downloaded, but that doesn't necessarily have,
all you would have to do is call Betsy and they could get everything that we've got. I mean,
yeah,
But if
But
they
I-
don't know to call me,
right.
you know,
If
you
they don't
don't know
that-
what you don't know.
Yeah, and if they
Right.
don't know that that guide to Woodbridge is available to download, like, you know, it seems like we have to promote to the real estate brokers, or maybe can we get volunteers to go to the town clerk when there's somebody new that moves in, and we can send them a postcard that lets them know that this stuff is available. I don't
And
know.
that's something community council has talked about a little bit. They're trying to kind of figure out some of these issues, but one of the problems is that unless you know the names, you don't know if the sale is a new resident or someone, you know, buying an investment property or upsizing or downsizing. And
Right.
sometimes you know just by looking at the names, but there isn't always a clear way to know, you know, who's new versus who's just selling and buying.
Right,
So that's a little bit of a wrinkle.
right.
I mean, if we do our commercial property owner meeting again, we can certainly let all those property owners know that as soon as you get a new tenant in town, please have them contact EDC so they can get in contact with us and learn how to meet other business owners and that kind of thing. I think the landlords want their tenants to succeed, and they're a good source of, you know, they're good people to give this information out to, because they're going to want their tenants to be able to feel good and do well and make money and be there for a long time.
Yeah.
So we can definitely focus on the landlords. I mean, that's a given, and we know the landlords. which is good.
Right. The landlords don't want the turnover. They want to keep a happy
Right.
tenant.
Right.
They do. So, I mean, if we set up this another meeting, but we also start it with sending out information saying, listen, this is why we want to have the meeting. We want your tenants to know who to reach out to when they get to town so they can do business and meet other business owners in Woodbridge. And we think that this is going to help you, be a better landlord for your tenant. It should work. I mean, it makes sense.
It doesn't mean it's going to work if it makes sense.
Thank you, Debbie.
I do think once we have that survey data, I think landlords and property owners will be very interested to hear that sort of thing, so that when they have a vacancy, maybe they can keep that in mind.
I agree.
I still think that, is there a way that we can do a modified marketing push that we don't have the budget that Wyndham had or some other cities and towns have, but we can certainly create something that says Woodbridge is open for business and highlight some empty spaces, even if they're rentals or properties that could be developed. I don't know. I feel like there's ways to do things that don't cost a lot.
I do too. It's a matter of what we want to focus that piece on. Is it the family aspect? Is it, we have to figure out what the topic is in that mailer or in that brochure, right, Debbie? I mean, what do you think as a marketing person?
On mute. I think part of it goes back to the property owners. When you mentioned Wheelers, and we've seen on the survey that there's a number of people who would love a brunch place or a family style restaurant. Has he been aggressive to look for people, or he's waiting for his phone to ring or his realtor's phone to ring? I think there's ways to do some outreach, but it depends on the bandwidth that Betsy has, which we all know she's overloaded, and budget, which we know is minimal. But I still think there's ways to do it and get the word out, because we are so close to New Haven, and there's a lot of business owners who are successful that they may not be starting from scratch and take the risk, but to approach someone who already has a business, maybe they have 2 locations, we can be the third. They're kind of a little more polished and uh, a smaller learning curve. I think that might be a better angle than go after first time business owners.
I don't know how you target established business owners per se that aren't in our town, but I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
It's like Common Ground. Common Ground has a successful place in Brantford, and they have a successful place in Hamden. You might say to them, hey, we've got this, whether it's the Wheelers location or another location, hey, we've got this location, and we know based on the data we've collected that our residents would support a business like yours. Let me introduce you to the business, the landlord, or something along those lines. I mean, that's different than a Bradley Road development. That's more of a 1-by-1, or Jesse's Toys and the other toy store. Hey, we know that the majority of new residents are young families. Would you be interested in, I mean, the Red Barn would have been great. It's too bad that won't be retail, but would you be interested in XYZ location that's open? We know that your type of store, based on the data, has a great chance of being successful, and we will help you as much as we can.
Yeah, I guess we've talked about that a bit, and I think that there's Let's see, what was it that we talked about? It's a little bit hard for us to just solicit for one landlord, or what's there? There was something you brought to my attention. We talked about it that.
Well, no, I think it's just, in general, in economic development, the thought is that it's a more productive use of your time to cultivate and support your existing businesses than to seek out new ones, only because it's a crapshoot, right? To stick with the Jesse Toys, analogy, let's say, I invest, I don't know, 2 hours, 20 hours, whatever, cultivating them. And then in the end, they just say, I don't know, and then instead of spending the 2 hours or 20 hours or whatever it is, working with our local businesses to say, do you have your paperwork in order? Can I help you with this? Do you have a banker?
Right.
So I don't think it's an entire waste of time, just generally speaking, that's not the best use of your time. Might be different if we have this data though, that shows people desperately want coffee or, whatever.
Yeah, it seems
And
to me
maybe it's
like
not even, go ahead.
seems like the common theme is around food. I saw one comment, one person said they want a great breakfast place, and I said, wow, that's pretty. I actually agree with that because I bring my family over to Orange or to New Haven just to have breakfast. So I think Woodbridge moved to family oriented place. We could probably just market it as family and probably, like you mentioned, existing business owners. Pitch to them in terms of not only retention but recommendations. And do you have other business owners who you could recommend bringing their business to Woodbridge and so forth. And that's just one approach, I think.
But I think too, if we have this data, that breakfast or coffee or toys or whatever is really, really wanted, it's not necessarily us doing that outreach, right? If we give the data to the to the property owners and the realtors, they can do that work, and it's in their financial best interest. We've done the legwork for them. They just need to do, the last bit, and they're the wheelers and the dealers. We're not that
This
person,
is
but
where
we
the
can give it to them
this
in a
is where
nice
the yeah
little tiny package. We've done a lot of work for them.
It's almost like putting out an RFP,
Sure.
that, but can it be done almost like a press release where this is what we're looking for? Because I know I do agree to spend a lot of time to do that and neglect other business needs. You don't want to just go down a wild goose chase, but in a way to have a press release that's like an RFP of what we're looking for based on the data, the word can get out in a very cost effective way that's not time consuming.
Well, and I think if we parse this data out and then we have a business owners meeting or a landlord meeting or a property owner meeting, once they get this data, we're going to be like, listen, folks, you have vacancies. This is what the residents in town are looking for. Find businesses like this to fill your spots. This is what people want. You find this business, people are going to come to it. This
But
is what the
it's
people
still
said.
it's fill your spots, but because of the grand list, where can new construction happen as well? And that's where the partnership with TPZ and just vacant land owners also comes into play.
Maybe when we parse this out, we pass this along to TP&Z for their own information as well.
Mhm.
Maybe they need to focus on an area that we see a potential use that's not allowed, and maybe they can think and figure out maybe how they can change that zoning
Right.
ordinance in that area.
And we don't know what businesses have come before them. I mean, obviously we can search through old minutes, but we don't necessarily know who's come before them that had interest in coming to town, and maybe they were denied, but there might be another spot for them, or
right.
people who were inquiring about businesses through TP&Z. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I guess if we went back through the minutes, you could probably find various businesses that may have applied and were denied or whatnot. But
Right.
I mean, just the sheer fact that there's a liquor store coming to town for the first time in what, like a century, um, is good. It's a plus. I mean, you're gonna have a wine shop in Woodbridge. I don't remember a wine shop in Woodbridge ever before. Um, so that's a new thing. That's a plus, I guess. Um, but Debbie, your point's perfectly is right. I just don't know how you get all the information out. I think the landlords are probably the best people for us to give all this information to. And TP&Z, I mean, we're giving you the information. We've mined the the public for their thoughts. And if we had to put out a subsequent survey next year to find out more information or information that we're lacking from this one, we can do it again and get more information. But maybe that's what we are, as a source of information to give to TP&Z and the landlords, so they can use it as a tool for them to start, making changes to zoning and things like that.
Right, because I think we all agree it's twofold. It's filling empty spots with businesses that our residents want, and then it's how to develop vacant land to grow the tax base with businesses and or housing that people want.
Yeah.
If it were that simple, right?
Yeah, right. But I think this is all good. I mean, it sounds like we have an idea of what we need to do. We just have to put it together. I think if we do this stuff with the survey at the next meeting and really put into some sort of a format that can be, put out there, it'll be a good step in the right direction. And I think we should also figure out some dates to get some landlords together. And Betsy, I don't know how we're from a business association, but I know we need to do it. I just don't know what we need to find some businesses that want to spearhead a group. And then we can sort of help them put it into motion. Right?
Yeah, I think maybe, after at the landlord meeting, we kind of throw it out there, engage their interest.
Okay.
And maybe following that, we reach out to some more folks and kind of see, maybe do an exploratory meeting.
Good. I think it's positive. We just need to have a plan of action and just keep executing these little steps, and hopefully we get, where we want to get to. So if no one else has anything else on the goals and priorities, can move on. I guess if we're moving on, the chairman's report, I don't have very much, other than I know that there's some new businesses in town. There's a State Farm Insurance that came into the Starbucks Plaza. There is an interesting company that came into the very back end of Bradley Road, in a building that you probably had never even knew existed. That's right across from West Rock Materials. It's basically a company that builds out crazy art installations, moving 3D giant pieces of art that are put all over the globe. So they're kind of neat. You got the liquor store that's going to be going into 245 Amity Road. It looks like that's going to happen, I believe. And just on a busyness note, it's been busy around here. Not to make examples because we haven't signed any leases or anything, but there's some larger type companies that have come in and looked at space in Woodbridge that hasn't been looked at in a long time. Medical, some medical stuff, infusion centers, some other sorts of businesses that are looking to move from other nicer buildings in other parts of the state, looking to come into town that's got equidistant, so they can get to their home Fairfield or their home in Madison and stuff like that, but is sort of close to both sides. So we sort of fit right there in the middle between, the shoreline and Fairfield. So it seems like we have a nice little niche there. So it's been busy. It really has been, which is good. I don't have much else.
Have we
but
lost anybody?
Have we
Have
lost
we lost
anybody?
anybody?
It's a good question. The state farm is moving into where the Better Beagle was, so they went out and they're coming in.
And where's the wine store? What was,
That they're going into where the art palette art studio was at 245, the little indented, how it butts into that one little area where Dermer's was.
and what, the art installation company, was there a building there?
Yeah, you just have to go back. You honestly, you've probably never even seen unless you've gone all the way back to West Rock Materials. As you
So
go
it's
by the
past-
big,
past
it's
the
past the
animal.
Trash Master building. You know the big Trash Master building that's on the right hand side as you're going towards the dead end?
Mhm.
It's actually behind that. You just can't see it unless you go past the building. But it was occupied by, oh, I forget the name of the company. They're across the way. NPI, is that who it is, Betsy? On Bradley Road, they're like across the way. Either way, it's just nice that there's some companies coming into town, and it's positive at least.
Betsy, what happened with that small office building? Behind the divorce center? Is that being?
Oh, the condos?
Yeah, or is it condos or with the,
It's
The
there
land?
are
cheese-
offices
cheese
that are
import-
condos.
the cheese importer and? they
Yep,
don't
those are
build-
condos.
Okay,
Oh, right next to the power grid.
like on Lunar, corner of Lunar Drive and Bradley, South.
Yeah.
Bradley,
Okay.
whichever Bradley.
The yellow building?
Behind
Behind it.
it. It's like a white building, like a two-story little office building.
Did the
Well-
bridal store manufacturer move out, the designer?
No, they're still there.
Oh, good.
Oh, and then you've got so Work Distillio's going into Red Barn, and Buddy DeGenero's place that Real Living is now and is probably going to be for lease. I don't know who's going to take it, but that's another.
He told me that's going to be Coldwell Banker.
Oh, so
And they
Cole
just
throws
finished
in there.
painting that exterior yesterday.
That's funny. But he just went to Colwell. So then the Colwell Banker locations on Amity Road are now going to be available. I'm assuming.
No, I think Buddy's place might just be an annex.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean by an annex?
Just like an additional office, right?
Small office, yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I know they've been selling plants and flowers out of Arnold Peck's little place next to the gas station. Just a nice use for
Looks
it now in the
nice.
growing season. What?
I think it looks really nice. I wish that little spot could get developed too.
And he told me he's very, very, very busy.
And
Yeah.
did you see just over the line that a storage facility got approved for the old Parati?
Yep.
Yep,
The old
at the
Parati
entrance to the
Garden
Marriott.
Across from Taco Bell.
Oh, yeah,
Great.
over there.
Yeah,
So it can rise up, and that's what you'll see when you're coming over the highway.
that's right.
Storage units, beautiful sight of storage units.
Actually, that is a good point because when you come through the tunnel, you have actually a nice view of the mountain behind Stop and Shop, and this might block that view.
You're right.
Yeah, and then New Haven gets the tax dollars and we get an eyesore.
Right. So that's it for me on my staff report. I don't have much else, but I don't know if Betsy, you have any other announcements to make?
Yeah. So just want to remind everybody, we've got the second Saturdays event series going on. We just had our first one last weekend. It was a chalk art party, and just about 20 families came and had fun drawing all over the driveway and parking lot at the center building. And they also played lawn games despite the very iffy weather. The next event will be Saturday, June 12. We're doing a community tag sale. So if you know anyone who wants to be a tag sale vendor, the sign up form is on the town website. In July, the Friends of the Library are doing their book sale. August, there will be an art event. And in September, there's a craft fair. So again, if you know someone who...
All these will be out in the center of town?
Yep. Yep. And they're all free for anyone to attend. So there's a small fee to be a tag sale vendor and a small fee to be a craft fair vendor to cover our costs for setup of the event. So those there's details about that on the town website. I applied for and received an economic development grant from UI to hold concerts in the business district. So as you guys were just mentioning, we do not own any land in the business district, which makes it really hard to hold events down there. So I'm doing all the kind of background organizational work, and the concerts will be at Coachman Square on their lovely lawn, and they will be doing all the work the day of the event because I don't have any staff. So it's a really great partnership. And so there will be 4 concerts on the 4th Saturday of the month. So we're doing June, July, skipping August, September, and October. They're at 1 o'clock. I talked to the retail businesses at 2:45 to ask them what day of the week and what time of day they thought would be most beneficial. And we settled on Saturday at 1. So I'm shortly going to be reaching out to other vendors and restaurants in the area to see if anybody wants to coordinate specials or, you know, takeout meals or anything on those days to try and take advantage of any extra traffic that we might see because of the concerts. So pretty excited about that.
If we could we put anything in their Urbana's parking lot? Have you asked them about anything? Just being that's across the way, there's all that.
Well, what do you mean? Like put what?
Food truck or some sort of a vendor thing, or I don't know. I don't want to take away from, obviously you don't want to take away from their businesses, but
yeah, I'm really sensitive about food trucks because I don't want people to skip the restaurants that pay taxes and go to a food truck instead. I did mention to Ellen at the Red Barn, you know, thinking if she wants to do like a sidewalk sale over the summer. They coordinated with a local masseuse who has a portable massage chair, and they did massages in the parking lot. And so I said, you know, if you want to do something like that, I'd be happy to promote it. So I'm just trying to get them to kind of think about what makes sense for them and what would help them draw people across the way. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to park at 2:45, so we'll kind of have a captive audience.
maybe we could ask Saloon wants to do like a drive-through tacos or something. What?
It's the 4th Saturday of the month. 1 o'clock.
What kind of music is it?
So the first concert in June is Bossa Nova. In July, it's swing. In September, it's like blues, kind of old-timey music. And in October, it's a klezmer band.
So there's nothing in August?
Right. I'm just very worried there's no shade out there.
Yeah, that's great.
The other thing that we're doing is Make Music Day. This is an international event that happens on the summer solstice, so June 21. And there's a database that the state has paid for to allow the Greater New Haven region access to the database. And it allows us to encourage businesses or organizations to sign up to be a host. And the database serves as a matchmaking tool. So once you're signed up as a host, musicians who want to play concerts can see you and request to play at your venue. So right now we've got Crest Lincoln signed up to be a host, and they've got a think it's a saxophonist, some jazz musician is signed up to play there. And the Linden has also signed up to be a venue, and they've got one person signed up already to play. So I'm going to throw it out to the business community one more time to see if anyone else wants to be a host. And if no additional groups sign up, then the town will host at Fitzgerald Field in the morning and Peace Place in the afternoon. But I want to give first dibs to businesses and organizations. I don't want to take away anything from them if it might be useful to them. And then another thing I just want to let you all know is I'm planning to get another printing done of our retail and trails brochure. Hopefully the end of this month or sometime early next month. I know we've got one more farm to add to the brochure. I don't think there's any additional retail to add. Oh, the wine store. I will have to add wine.
You have the State Farm?
Well, it's not offices. Otherwise I'd have to have like 5 brochures printed. So it's retail, trails, and farms that are open to the public. So we've got plenty of farms in town, but not all of them want people just dropping by their house.
Does that printing come out of our budget, or are you looking for sponsors?
Comes out of your budget. I'm able to get it printed through the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities for dirt cheap. So I think I can get 1,000 copies for about $200.
Great.
And you would circulate that to the homes, or?
No, it would go to all of the businesses on the list. So the idea is if you stopped by New England Brewing, you don't necessarily know that the running store is in town or the bike store.
Just grab
the
a
bike store.
brochure.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Got
any
it.
business on the list, I would distribute brochures to them. And that's it on my end.
Very good.
Thanks, Betsy.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else from anyone? It's 9:15. I'm tired.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Can I get a second? All
Aye.
in favor?
Third.
Aye. Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
All right.
Night,
Night.
Betsy.
Take care.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.